So, your bug-out bag is dialed in. You've got spark rods, collapsible solar panels, ultralight filters, thousands of dollars in sleek survival gear. But what happens when that fire starter slips into a stream, or your solar charger cracks under pressure, or your purifier gets jammed with silt? Suddenly, all that shiny tech is just dead weight. Modern survival gear is impressive, but it's fragile. It breaks. It runs out. It depends on fuel, signal, or spare parts. And when any one link fails, the whole chain snaps. Now picture this. Centuries ago, people faced far harsher conditions. Brutal winters, failed harvests, no hospitals, no backup power. And yet, they didn't just survive. They adapted, and not with gear they bought, but with skills they carried. No batteries, no instructions, just hard-earned, time-tested knowledge passed down through generations. This wasn't guesswork or bushcraft gimmicks. It was intelligent, adaptive problem-solving under real pressure. And a lot of it puts our modern survival gear to shame. In this video, we're going to uncover 7 medieval survival skills that still work today and might just outperform your latest tactical gear. They're durable, they're resourceful, and most importantly, they don't fail when the tech does. These aren't tricks. They're lifelong strategies forged in some of the toughest environments in history. The candle that did it all. Imagine the power's gone. It's pitch black. Your flashlight's flickering, your batteries are dying, and all you've got left is a candle or two. Now imagine one of those candles could also warm your hands, waterproof your boots, and, if it really came down to it, keep you alive with a few grim bites. That's not fantasy. That's what medieval survivors did, with tallow candles. These weren't delicate scented candles from a gift shop. They were hand-poured from rendered animal fat, beef, sheep, or even wild game, and they were an absolute cornerstone of daily life. People would collect leftover fat from butchering, melt it down over low heat, and pour it into simple molds made of clay or horn. For the wick, they'd twist up natural plant fibers, flax, hemp, or even nettle. Crude, maybe. Effective? Without a doubt. But here's the real brilliance. A tallow candle wasn't just a light source. It was a survival multi-tool. First, of course, it gave off steady light, crucial in winter months when darkness ruled 14 hours a day. Second, it provided a little heat. Not enough to warm a room, but enough to unfreeze fingers or stop ink from solidifying on a quill. But most astonishingly, yes, it was edible. In starvation scenarios, peasants and even soldiers would bite into tallow candles as a last resort. It was dense, greasy, high-calorie, barely food, but better than death. And the usefulness didn't stop there. They smeared leftover tallow onto boots and cloaks to repel water. They rubbed it into wooden tools and iron blades to prevent rust and cracking. They even used it to soothe cracked skin in the biting cold, a primitive but effective balm. Compare that to your modern LED lantern. It might light up a tent, but it won't fix your gear, keep your feet dry, or keep you alive when the food runs out. In the medieval world, survival wasn't about carrying more things. It was about knowing how to stretch every resource as far as it could go. The tallow candle was the perfect symbol of that mindset. Make it once, use it for everything. Bone and sinew, the ultimate repair kit. So your ultralight pack just tore. Your Gore-Tex sleeve is ripped. Your gear is now not gear, it's junk. Modern equipment is sleek, but here's the truth. It's made to be replaced, not repaired. Out in the wild, far from warranty cards and spare parts, that's a big problem. But medieval people, they couldn't afford disposable anything. They had to make every item last. And when it broke, they fixed it better. Their secret weapon? A bone needle and sinew thread? A combination that sounds primitive until you realize it was more durable than half the plastic repair kits we buy today. Let's break it down. The needle. Medieval folks would carve fine needles from animal bones, especially deer or wild boar. After boiling and cleaning, the bone was shaped by hand with stone files or sand, sharpened, and then had a small hole carefully drilled through. It wasn't pretty, but it was tough, easily strong enough to pierce rawhide, canvas, or thick wool. A well-crafted bone needle could last for years and was often passed down like a family heirloom. The thread. For stitching, they didn't use cotton or synthetic blends. They used sinew, dried tendons pulled from the backs and legs of animals. These fibers were carefully teased apart, twisted together, and slightly moistened before use. Once it dried again after sewing, sinew had a special property. It tightened. That meant stitches locked down tighter with time. No loosening, no fraying. It was nature's own heavy-duty thread. This combo, bone and sinew, allowed medieval survivors to patch cloaks in the middle of snowstorms, reseal boots that had split from overuse, bind up tool handles, or even lash arrowheads and knives, mend tents, sails, and saddlebags that tore in travel. And they didn't need a workshop, just a pouch, a bone needle wrapped in oiled cloth, a few strips of dried tendon. That was their entire mobile repair system. The mentality was different. Today, we think of a ripped coat as broken. Back then, it was just phase 2 in that coat's life. Because when your life depends on your gear, you don't throw it away, you make it stronger. The living furnace, how cows kept people warm. Imagine the power grid collapses in the middle of winter. Your thermostat's dead, your propane heater's out of fuel. Suddenly your home turns into a freezer with a roof. This kind of cold, the creeping, bone-deep chill, is something medieval families knew all too well. They didn't have electric blankets or space heaters, but they did have heat that walked on 4 legs. Welcome to the house barn, a medieval architectural hack where your livestock didn't live next to the house. They lived with you. In many parts of Europe, especially in colder climates, peasants built homes that merged human and animal life under one roof. Cattle, sheep, and even pigs were stabled just a thin wall, or even a floor, away from where the family slept. It wasn't a design flaw. It was deliberate survival engineering. The living larder, why fermentation, was a survival superpower. Your emergency pantry is stocked. Freeze-dried meals, vacuum-sealed packs, maybe a few MREs. But here's the catch. Most of that food, it's dead. Once you eat it, it's gone. And when the packages run out, so does your supply. Medieval survivors played by an entirely different rulebook. They didn't just store food, they created living systems that could preserve, evolve, and even multiply their nutrition over time. Their greatest weapon? Fermentation. This wasn't just pickling for taste, it was microbial warfare against decay. People in the Middle Ages learned to enlist good bacteria to outcompete the bad, creating foods that lasted for months and actually became more nutritious as they aged. Let's start with the most famous example, sauerkraut. Fresh cabbage spoils fast, but shredded, salted, and sealed in a crock, cabbage transformed into sauerkraut, loaded with vitamin C and gut-friendly enzymes. Sailors literally packed barrels of the stuff to prevent scurvy on long voyages. For peasants, it was a winter staple that stayed edible deep into spring. Cheese and cultured dairy. Milk spoils fast. But in the hands of a medieval farmer, it became cheese, buttermilk, kefir. These weren't just flavor upgrades. They were storage hacks. Cheese concentrated calories, fat, and protein into dense bricks that could last for months without refrigeration. Sourdough and fermented grains. Medieval bakers didn't have dry yeast packets. Their breads rose thanks to wild yeasts and lactic acid bacteria, collected and cultivated in starter jars passed down through families. These cultures made bread rise, boosted its digestibility, and acted as a kind of bioshield against mold and spoilage. What made all this possible wasn't tools. It was timing and touch. Medieval households knew exactly when a ferment was alive and safe to eat. They read the bubbles, sniffed the crock, listened for the hiss of pressure. These were sensorial skills passed from mother to daughter, from brewmaster to apprentice. The result? A food system that didn't just sit on shelves. It grew, preserved, and protected itself. Your survival rations might last 25 years on paper, but can they self-replicate, improve gut health, create new nutrition from old scraps? Fermentation was medieval magic, slow, invisible, and absolutely essential. The multi-tool spoon, carved, carried, and crucial. You probably have a titanium spork in your bug-out bag. Lightweight, expensive, unbreakable. But here's the question. What happens when it snaps, gets lost, or melts by the fire? In medieval times, people didn't rely on fragile gadgets with single purposes. They crafted tools that were durable, multifunctional, and personal. And one of the most underrated of them all? The wooden spoon. Yeah, a spoon. But this wasn't just a utensil. It was a custom-made survival tool. For many travelers, soldiers, and peasants, their spoon was as important as their knife. Here's why. Built-in versatility. Medieval spoons were often carved from hardwoods like oak, ash, or hornbeam, dense, tough materials that could withstand years of use. The rounded bowl wasn't just for eating, it could be used to scrape, measure, or mix anything from food to medicinal herbs. The edges were sharp enough to shave tinder from bark or carve makeshift tools in emergencies. The handle? Often hollowed or notched. Some carried a pinch of salt, a sliver of flint, or a bone needle tucked right inside. If you were on the road or in the woods, this little tool became a portable survival Swiss Army knife, carved not in a factory, but by your own hand. A timekeeper and diary. In some regions, people notched the handle to track days on the road, moon phases, or the number of meals left. It was your calendar, ration log, and eating gear all in one. A spoon could even be used as a subtle ID marker. Soldiers often carved symbols or initials into the handle. If something happened to you, your spoon told your story. The wisdom of wool and linen, nature's armor against the cold. Modern survivalists obsess over insulation. Gore-Tex, down jackets, thermal base layers, all of it designed to trap heat and wick moisture. But here's the cold truth. Most of it fails when wet. One unexpected downpour or slip in a stream, and you're shivering in a $300 coat that's now a soggy blanket. Medieval people faced freezing temperatures, biting winds, and icy rains without synthetic fibers or waterproof membranes. So, how did they survive? They built their survival system on two ancient materials that science still can't fully improve on: wool and linen. Navigating with the sun and skin, direction without devices. Modern survivalists lean hard on GPS. It's precise, fast, and fits in your pocket, but let's be honest. When the battery dies, it's just a brick. Even paper maps can be destroyed by rain or lost in the wind. In the medieval world, people crossed kingdoms, hunted, migrated, and even went to war, without satellites, screens, or waterproof compasses. How? They relied on the original navigation system: the sky, the land beneath their feet, and the sensations in their skin. Durable maps made of animal skin. For long journeys, travelers and merchants used parchment maps, not made of paper, but of stretched and treated animal hide. These were far more than artistic scrolls. They were rugged tools, naturally water-resistant and nearly impossible to tear. Ink made from oak galls chemically bonded to the surface, creating maps that survived decades of wear. Unlike modern maps overloaded with data, medieval maps focused on landmarks, not grids, mountain shapes, river bends, and village layouts. If you got lost, these visual cues helped you find your place in the world, not just your coordinates. Which of these skills would you want to master first? The edible candle? The map made of hide? The cow-heated bedroom? Drop your favorite in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe that resilience isn't in your gear, but in your know-how, hit that like button and subscribe. Because every day, we uncover the forgotten wisdom that modern gear can't replace.